Welcome students. Today I will discuss environmentalism, ecologism, green politics and the future earth. Environmentalism, which denotes a social movement that seek to protect using political process by lobbying, activism, education in order to protect environment and ecosystem. Environmentalism is a heterogeneous process worldwide which includes social and political system which champions the preservation of the sustainable management and restoration of the natural environment in an endeavor to fulfill human wants, including spiritual and social needs as well as for its own sake. The concept of environmentalism includes totality of all component around human being. While describing a polity as the best practicable state, Greek philosopher Aristotle states that imitation of nature is the best way to protect our environment. An environmentalist is a person who always speaks about our natural environment and the sustainable development of our earth. This may include supporting practices such as informed consumption, conservation, and initiative investment in renewable resources, improved efficiencies in the material economy, renewing and revitalizing our connection with non-human life, even opting to have lesser child is also a environmentalism. In various ways, for example, protect our environment and environmental organization give a natural world a stronger voice as human affairs. It starts with Roman Emperor AD 80 when they talk about the clean water supply. Then in 14th century, William Penn advocated 1 acre of forest land in place of if we use 5 acres of cultivated land. In the 19th century, English government passed a resolution to reduce the effects of coal burning in the area. In the last quarter of the 19th century, scientists, federal officials, and number of companies recognized that rapid cutting of the forest should be reduced and resulting in the Forest Reserve Act in 1891. National Park was declared in Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. In 1893, Britain founded the Royal Society for the Protection of the Birds. In 1905, the US Forest Service was created. Clifford Pinochet set up a system of management for national resources that focused on selective harvest rather than indiscriminate plunder. William Hornaday, one of the first conservationists to draw attention to the plight of the endangered wildlife, Aldo Leopold, posthumous work, A Sand Country Almanac, explored the complex relationship between organisms and their environment. Contemporary environmentalism. Within 100 years, a handful of concerned people had done much more to raise awareness among the environmental problem. In the 1960s, environmentalism became an important political and intellectual movement in the worldwide. It starts with the writing of Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, in which he describes an imaginary environmental problem or catastrophe. Carson emphasized the fragility of the ecological relationship and argued for embedding human beings in this relationship rather than beyond and called traditional notion of scientific progress into question. The popular environment movement began with some catastrophe which happens in the world. Number one, the oil spill in Santa Barbara, and second one, in the same year, the Cuyahoga River in Cleveland, Ohio, the fire on the river water. These two things took lot of attention of the common people and the politician. The year 1971 saw the establishment of two of the most important environmental pressure groups. They are the new non-governmental organization who worked for the environment. Then, after getting lot of interest regarding our environment, the first Earth Summit held on 1972, the first of the 10-year Earth Summit, it held at Stockholm, Sweden. The summit was initiated by the developed world to address the environmental problem worldwide and was attended by the 113 nations. The major outcome of the conference were as follows: 26 principles of the declaration of the conference, an action plan for the human development and human environment, an environment fund, establishment of the United Nations Environment Program, that is UNEP, with its headquarters at Nairobi. It was designed to promote environmental practices throughout the world. It has also coordinated the subsequent Earth Summit. So, this is the first kind of Earth Summit which recognized the environmental problem worldwide and which also focus that human kind fails to protect the environment. We have to protect our environment in a proper way. After the conclusion, the conference said the great number of countries introduced issues which related to environment which previously ignored. Then comes the second summit. It is held on 1982 at Nairobi, Kenya. But due to Soviet Union's intervention in Afghanistan, many nations refused to participate in this Earth Summit. So it was not any good outcome come from this second Earth Summit. But in 1983, United Nations General Assembly created the UN World Commission on Environment Development with Dr. Gro Harlem Brundtland, the first woman Prime Minister of Norway, its chairperson. In 1987, she published Brundtland Report and coined the term sustainable development. So, from 1987, we got a new terminology in environmentalism, that sustainable development. This report combines environmental and economic consideration and defines the term sustainability as follows: development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own need. So it is the first time we coined that the present world cannot use the resources indiscriminately without considering the forthcoming generations. Then another major catastrophic events, man-made events, happened at Chernobyl. That is the Chernobyl disaster, which not only create havoc to the local area, but it also has a transboundary effect, that radiation crossed the Chernobyl and international boundary. So then people try to think about the interrelationship of environmentalism between different countries and nations. The same year witnessed two international agreements. Number one, Convention on Early Notification of Nuclear Accident. So every country has to notify that nuclear accident. Previously it was not. And the Convention in Assistance in case of nuclear accident and radiological emergency. And its following decade, a Convention on Nuclear Safety, 1994 happens, established a incentive for countries to adopt basic standards for the safe operation of land-based nuclear power plant. So this is the first time in 1994 a proper integrated system of land-based nuclear power happens. Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer held in 1987. So first time people thought about the depletion of ozone layer. We all know the ozone is a very important element which protects us from the UV of the sun. So if ozone layer is not there, our humanity, our all humankind will be destroyed. So this is the first time people try to think about the ozone layer, which took a shape at Montreal Protocol. Now comes the third Earth Summit in 1992. It is a Rio de Janeiro summit and it has a big size with lot of participation from different countries, number of NGOs and it is a big event in our Earth history. It aimed to outcome an agenda for future action on environmental protection and development issue. The summit witnessed the Convention on Biological Diversity. So you see, gradually we come to consider the biological diversity as an element of environmentalism. We cannot think without the diversity. So diversity is a very, very important factor in environmentalism. The Framework Convention of the Climate Change are legally binding for all countries. The first time here, all countries are legally bound to think about climate change. So it is a legal obligation of all the countries to think about climate change. Then other three documents which were not legally bound, but we have to consider that are 21 agenda which was thought in this program. So the Rio outcome was Convention to combat desertification, Rotterdam Convention on prior informed consent to procedure for certain hazardous chemical and pesticides in international trade, Convention of present organic pollutants, the straddling and migration of fish stock agreement. So you see, fish stock, we know all are moving from one ocean to another. So we have to consider also their movement in this convention. Kyoto Protocol 1997 pursue the convention objectives. It emphasizes the commitment related to the greenhouse gases emission. Objective of this Kyoto Protocol was to seize the ultimate objective of the conventions to stabilize atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gases at a level that will prevent dangerous influence on the earth climate. Because we all know that greenhouse gases are most responsible for ozone depletion. So in the fallout, we talk in Kyoto Protocol, the reduction of greenhouse gases in pursuit of the objective of Kyoto Protocol builds upon to enhance the many of the commitments already in the Rio Convention. The fourth summit, that is in 2002, so now the goal of sustainable development is come into the force, and it is named in the summit itself, the World Summit on Sustainable Development. Or the fourth is also called Earth Summit. It is held at Johannesburg, South Africa from 26th August to 4th September 2002. In a goal according to UN General Assembly resolution was to hold a 10-year review of the 1992 Earth Summit. So we can say it is Rio plus 10 Earth Summit. Participants 6,500, numerous NGOs and other media people attended this conference. Though the American President Bush was not attending due to some reason, that is American tax reformers and American entrepreneurs intervention, so he refused to attend this, but most of the countries attended this Earth Summit. The goal of the summit also shifted from social and development agenda and more particularly toward poverty eradication and sanitation and health. The plan of the implementation recognized poverty as a running theme linked to its multiple dimensions. So poverty come to this summit as a focal theme. Modest commitments on measures to contribute to recovery of the fish stock, chemical and potential benefit sharing regime under the Convention on Biological Diversity and other issues. Then comes environmental philosophy. Environmental philosophy, during 1970s philosopher, they thought environmentalism as a environmental philosophy. Environmentalism is a unique political concept and ideology in its concern for the relationship between human beings and their environment as well as human beings themselves. Environment philosopher critiques of the modern industrial society can be summarized by saying with Fritz Schumacher, author of The Small is Beautiful, that a modern industrial system with its intellectual sophistication consumes the very basic and very basis which are erected. Environmental thought and ideologies which are based upon which the edifice of the various offshoot of environmental movement. Apocalyptic environmentalism started with Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, 1962, Garrett Hardin's The Tragedy of the Commons, Paul Ehrlich, The Population Bomb, Donella H. Meadows, The Limit of the Growth, and the Edward Goldsmith's Blueprint for Survival, all suggested that the ecosystem was reaching the limits of which it could sustain. So they thought that ecosystem reaching its limit, so we cannot go beyond this. So this is a very bleak aspect of the earth, bleak face of the earth they have shown. This apocalyptic or survivalistic literature encourage some environmentalists to call for an increase in the power of the government and control the human being. So power of the government should be more that they can control the freedom of the human, and it can, in the other way, it can sustain our environment. So this is Robert Helborn put in his book An Inquiry into the Human Prospect, in which argued that the survival of the man ultimately required the curtailment of freedom. So the curtailment of freedom is necessary for environmental protection of the earth. Emancipatory environmentalists basically consider the control of the environment through recycling. The recycling process can control the damages of the environment, decentralization and democratization of economic and social planning, and recognition of major industrial sector including agriculture and industries. Contrary to this apocalyptic school, the emancipatory school look a more positive and practical approach which included efforts to promote an ecological consciousness and environment management. Some of the champions of emancipatory environmentalism put more emphasis on developing small-scale system of economic production rather than the big scale or big company or big units. They would be more closely integrated with natural process of surrounding and ecosystems. The environmentally holistic approach to economic planning was promoted by an American ecologist, Barry Commoner, and German economist Ernst Friedrich Schumacher. The duo emphasized productive processes that worked with nature and not against it, encourage the use of organic and renewable resources rather than chemical fertilizer or chemical pesticide. This approach was called in 90s in the popular slogan that is think globally, act locally. So the concept was changed that you start acting locally, thinking the global way. Human welfare ecology. The approach aims to enhance human life by creating a safer and cleaner environment and place more importance on quality of life than on traditional economic concern. It was a part of the broader concern with distributive justice and reflected the tendency later characterized or post-materialism. Ecologism is a new political theory based on the position that the non-human world is worthy of moral consideration, that this should be taken into account in social, economic, and political system. So here we consider the non-human thing also for the ecology concern. Then also come few pressure group which are talking about the green politics. Green politics or eco-politics is a political thought that aims to substitute an ecologically sustainable society frequently but not to constantly ingrained in environmentalism, non-violent social fairness and its mass democracy. It begins getting shape in the Western countries in 1970s. The political world which come with the word green was used initially in a relation to the dry Gunan or green. They talk about the marginalization, degradation, and environmental conflict, control and conservation, social movements, and environmental identities. Followers of green politics basically share numerous ideas of environmental conservation, peace, and other things. Green politics is worried with civil liberties, non-violent social justice, and support of social progressivism. So, we can conclude in this way that existing global environmental problems are universal. It is not bounded by any country or any region. Collaboration among nations are very important. New efforts will also have to be required through different dialogue. The Future Earth Initiative is very important, was proposed based on the Rio Plus 20 conference in 2012, led by International Council of Science, and becomes fully operational in 2015, based on the same principle concept. Two existing activities are very important. One is integrating Global Environmental Change Program, GEC, and Sustainable Development Goals. These Sustainable Development Goals encompasses 17 principles, which are basically starting from number 1, no poverty, number 2, zero hunger, number 3, good health and well-being, number 4, quality education, number 5, gender equality, 6, clean water and sanitation, 7, affordable and clean energy, 8, decent work and economic growth, 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure, 10, reduced inequalities, 11, sustainable cities and communities, 12, responsible consumption and production, 13, climate action, 14, life below water, 15, life on land, 16, peace, justice and strong institution, 17, partnership for the goals. So sustainable development goals are nowadays the key word of environmentalism and its protection.